Well, our next task is to work on these tires. And as I mentioned before, what I'd like to do is bake a normal map that captures the high resolution information of the tire treads, but still use this lower poly tire. So let's start working on this. I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and select the tire here, and I'll hide everything else just so we can focus on this for now. We don't really need this layer here right now, so I'll delete that. And if you recall, we haven't baked the textures yet here. If we go into our texture set settings, you can see there aren't any texture maps here in this panel. So what we're going to do is use the Bake Mesh Maps feature here. I'll go ahead and turn on all of these here so they're all checked. And what we'll do is we will use this field right here, this high definition meshes, and we'll bring in our high poly objects for the tire and the spare tire, and we'll use those to bake the normal maps. So before we can bring in those high poly objects, we first need to export them out of Blender. So let's first of all go do that. Okay, back in Blender here, what let's do is let's bring back the tire high. Let me hide everything first, and then I'll bring back this tire high right here. And if we take a look at it, if we select it, we can see that the origin is still over here. Let's move that into the center of the object. We're going to need that when we take it into Unity. Let's go ahead and do that now. So here we go. We've moved it into the origin of the object. We have only this object selected. So now what let's do is let's go to File and Export, and we'll export another FBX. We will go to our exports folder here, and well, let's call this tire underscore high, and we'll export it as an FBX here. And there we go. Now remember that we labeled the low poly tire, tire underscore low. So we're going to use that naming convention in Substance Painter as we bake our normal map. And while we're here, let's go ahead and export out the spare tire high as well. Here it is. It looks like that origin is in the center of that object. So let's go ahead with this selected and export this as an FBX. Oh, you know what I didn't do? I didn't choose selected object. So we're going to need to go back and re-export that tire object. While we're here, let's go ahead and select that. We'll type in spare tire underscore high, and we'll export that FBX. There we go. And now let's go back to that tire high here. Let's do that. Let's be sure and select that selected object, because if we don't, it will bring in everything in that one FBX file, and we don't want that. We don't want all of the vehicle and the high polys all in one object. So let's go ahead and come back to here and go to File, Export, FBX. We've got our tire high selected. Let's now make sure selected objects is checked. I'll come back, I'll go ahead and select tire high, and we'll export this over the old one. We'll just replace it. Export. Okay, so now we've got just the tire and just the spare tire exported out as FBX. All right, now let's go back to Substance Painter. So here in Substance Painter, we just need to go back to our Bake Mesh Maps window here. We'll click here, and let me turn on all of these so they're all checked, because we need to, in addition, we need to bake all the other texture maps as well. But here in the high definition meshes area, right here, we're going to click on this icon, and then we're going to go to our export folder, and we're going to find that tire underscore high right here. And we'll click on open. Now, here it is, right there. And since we've done that, let's scroll down and make sure we actually use these suffixes, the underscore high and underscore low. And to do that, we need to change this from always to by mesh name. So now it's going to look at the mesh name and see if it can find the underscore low and underscore high. Also, just like we did before, let's choose ambient occlusion, and under this self-occlusion, let's choose only same mesh name. Okay, so now that we have all of that in place, we've got our tire selected here. Let's come down and choose Bake Tire Mesh Maps. Here we go. All right, it's going to go through all of the maps here, and as you can see, it's beginning to give us that high resolution information from that high poly object. But keep in mind, it's just a fake. It's just an optical illusion, as it were. We're still using the low poly tire in the model itself. Also, we're getting an error here that says tire ID. I think I know what that is, and it's something I always do. It isn't a problem, it's just something I did, and I'll show you what that is. All right, we are all done, and you can see here it says one baking process failed, see log, and let's go ahead and take a look at that. I'll click OK, and hey, there's our normal map at work there. You can see the treads now, that's great. But let's come down here and click on this right here, this, and that'll open up the log window. And you can see it says, could not find vertex colors in mesh tire high. And what it does is when it has a high resolution object to bake from, it looks for the color ID map from the high resolution object. Well, if you recall, I put the color ID or the vertex paint on the low poly object. And generally speaking, that's what we wanted from the vehicle and the gun. But for this, I should have put the color ID on the high poly object. But since there's just one color, it really doesn't matter all that much at all. So it's okay. And in fact, as I said, I always do this, so it's never been a problem. But now that we've got this done, let's go ahead and add some textures to it. We probably want a rubber material here. Let's go ahead and use this rubber vulcanized. Let's just drag this straight over into the layers. And since there's only one vertex color, or frankly, no vertex colors here on the low poly object, I don't need to create groups and then add a mask by color selection. I just can drag it straight over here. All right, that looks pretty good right there. Let's add a little bit of dirt to it. Let's right-click and choose Add a Black Mask. And then let's right-click on the black mask and choose Add Generator. And for the generator, let's choose the dirt. All right, there we go. And we can invert it. I'll just click here. That helps. Okay, and let's give the dirt some color. Let's come over here and create a fill layer right here. Well, we need to drag it over into the dirt. There we go. And for the fill layer, let's scroll down and change this color here. Let's bring this up. What do we have here? Let's bring it down into the brown here, something like this maybe. Let's bring this down some. So I'm just looking for a nice brown color that we can use. Something kind of like that, I think. And we could always sample colors again, but I think that'll work just fine for now. And then let's go back into the dirt generator. I'll just click here. And in here we can increase or decrease the dirt level. I can bring this back up maybe just a bit like that. I'll shift right click and bring the light around here. There we go. And dirt contrast, maybe I'll bring that down some. Let's try that. If we were having problems with our seams here, we could turn on the triplanar here. Let's take a look at the grunge amount. We can increase that. Well, that may be a bit too much, huh? Let's bring that back down. All right, I think that's okay. Let's add that wheel back on here, and let's create the textures for that, and then we'll bring the vehicle back and do some adjusting then. So let's select the wheel texture set, and I think I'll just use that steel again. Let's just type in steel down here. Here's that steel rust and wear. I'll drag that on here. And maybe we want it a little bit rougher. Maybe we want it a little bit lighter. And maybe we want a little bit more wear in there. Let's maybe increase the dirt intensity. There we go. Maybe bring up the dirt scale just a bit. Rust intensity maybe up a hair. Yeah, so something like that looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's bring the vehicle back and let's see how it looks here. All right, it looks pretty good. I think it needs to be a little bit more worn. So I'm going to go back to the tire, select the color of the tire itself, and I think I want to bring that color up a little bit lighter like this. Yeah, something like that. So we've got some dirt, some high resolution detail on the treads. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, so in the next video, what let's do is go through the same process with the spare tire. And then also we'll begin thinking about doing some hand painting to create some dirt maybe around the front, because this looks pretty clean compared to all of this back here. So I think we're going to need to add a little bit of hand painting up here on the front. So that's all coming up next.